I have introduced H.R. 3650, the State National Forest Management Act. And, Mr. Chairman, if I can, I'm going to go through a little history. It directs the Department of Agriculture, that the Forest Service, to convey to the state up to 2 million acres of eligible portion of the National Forest System within its boundaries of the Tongass National Forest, that it elects to acquire through legislation by the state and legislative meeting of certain criteria. The portion of land conveyed to the state shall be administered and managed primarily for timber production. It includes options to purchase land at fair market value, exchange lands, forego pending statehood selections, and would be determined through the passage of state law. The Tongass is 17 million acres, but through a series of congressional withdrawals, the wilderness designation, and administration policy changes, the suited timber base available for management has declined to a mere 672,000 acres of 17 million acres, 4%. The state manages only a tiny fraction of forest land in southeast Alaska, about 50,000 acres in southeast of the state forest. The Tongass National Forest has sold only about 12% of its 267 million board feet annual allowable cut. The state has sold about 65% of its 12.1 million board feet annual allowable cut. The state timber sale takes about 18 months to plan and offer, as opposed to the United States Forest Service, which takes the average of 5 years and up as 10 years, largely due to NEPA. The USDA estimates that 90 states govern management of Forest Service, with conflicting mandates and exposed agencies to litigation. Nowhere in the nation are federal lands decisions more destructive to communities and hardworking people than the 17 million acre Tongass National Forest. What should be a straightforward and balanced process, given the size of the Tongass, the federal government has time and time again failed, especially the Forest Service. In Alaska, we have a proven record of success in managing millions of acres of state parks and forests. H.R. 3650 would give the states and local governments an opportunity to show they're in fact the best stewards of our lands. My bill works to address the major failures of federal land management agencies while giving our states an opportunity to do better. This proposal works to end the constant fighting between our forestry communities and federal government by allowing us to resolve our differences at home. I have to say, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I worked on the National Lands Act, and I was told at that time by George Miller from California, be peace in the valley. Mr. Tongass voted for the bill, and we thought we had an agreement. But it's an encroachment again and again and again. And if you look at the management of our public lands on Forest Service, the worst managed lands in the United States by our government is the Forest Service lands. And it's because they become park rangers instead of silver scourges. They don't understand the harvesting. They don't understand the impact upon communities. They live in housing provided by this government. They buy boats and motors and kayaks, snow machines, helicopters, and airplanes to take and survey the lands and make sure that no Alaskans are on those lands, and they don't cut any trees. We have one mill in Alaska, one mill. They have 2 years' supply left, and we have 17 million acres. At one time, we were cutting, you think about this, we were cutting about 500 million board feet a year out of flat forest. That was not nearly the estimate they could have cut, because forestry is a renewable resource. And we have people from the eastern states that look upon, oh, isn't it pretty, as they go back to their homes and drive their cars. They don't understand the impact upon the people and the mismanagement of silviculture. These trees are going to die. In doing so, you will not have the opportunity to harvest trees in the future or in the present to provide jobs and timber for this nation. We ought to address this as a real issue of nature, not a one as man-made. We did not do it under the National Lands Act. We thought we had that agreement with the environmentalists. We had peace in the valley. And immediately as we passed that bill, and it was signed into law, there was another lawsuit to take the remaining timber away, and they were successful. So I'm asking you, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, to think about the state of Alaska, the Tongass National Forest. Let the state manage that 2 million acres. That'll give us a basis for a study. I would call it a continued economy for Southeast Alaska other than tourism, which only occurs during the summer months, 9 months of vacancy. So I'm asking that, Mr. Chairman. With that, I yield back.